All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Keystone Sessions. This is our last session of the year, which I know doesn't sound like, thank you, which doesn't sound like a huge thing. Having done this now for 2.5 years, every Wednesday, with the exception of a couple of holidays and a few Chiefs parades, it's been I think, one of those. I didn't think we could do it every week. I didn't think there would be, I always wondered, would there be enough speakers? Would there be enough quality innovation content for us to put up here? And then we really kind of leaned into the community and asked the community to help us start sourcing content and workshops like the one that just happened at 5 o'clock. And it's been inspiring, to say the least, to see kind of the community come together, which was the whole goal of what we do here at Keystone Sessions. Let's bring people together every week. Let's bring them together around great topics. Let's bring them together around things that are interest to the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the people who are doing, trying to make change in the world. And so when I say it's the last one of the year, for me, like, we're getting ready to go into a new season. So, this is kind of the end of season 2, if you will, for Keystone Sessions. And I couldn't be happier the way that we are kind of concluding the season, because these two I have known for a while now and had the opportunity to watch take an idea and turn it into this company that's, really changing the world, I think, in a brilliant way. And so I'm excited to have him here. I typically don't do introductions, but I'm gonna actually make an exception this time. Jannae, Gammage, and Alaia Martin, the co-founders of Cyphr, are here with us tonight. I don't know how many of you have noticed in the last few weeks, but we have started a podcast from a lot of the sessions we do. So we are actually, live taping the Disruption Lab podcast tonight. And I'm excited to have you both here as guests, as an opportunity to sit here and talk about what you're working on. So I want to give you an opportunity to tell me a little bit about yourselves and introduce yourselves, even though I told everybody who you are. And Jannae, we'll start with you. Just, not just the name and title thing, but like a little bit about your background and how you got here.
Oh my gosh. So I'm Jannae Gammage. I am the CEO and co-founder of Cyphr. Data analyst by trade, military veteran, collegiate athlete. I've lived a bunch of lives. But I actually started my first business around 14. Didn't really know that I didn't know that I was an entrepreneur. I'm telling my age, but this is during a time where entrepreneurship was not praised like it is now. It just meant you lived in your parents' basement and did nothing. And actually my mom kind of introduced me to it. She didn't call it entrepreneurship. She just said, hey, you need to use your talents to make some money. And I was like, yeah, because I like shoes. So you're limiting how many pairs of shoes that you buy me. So I need some money. But that kind of catapulted me, and I've always been an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form. This is my second tech company, and I'm really excited about what we're doing, which I guess we'll get into later.
No, that was a good intro. Hey, Alaia Martin, co-founder, COO is my title. We say that Jannae handles everything external, sales, fundraising, and I handle everything internal to make sure the company's running, healthy, alive, which is a thing for a startup in the first couple of years. I came from just a kind of cleaner background as far as getting here. When I finished my MBA, I went straight into C-suite at one of the top 5 banks, worked in risk, analytics, and finance there for a little over a decade. Launched my first company, which was financial literacy for kids, and scaled that, which was really fun. I kind of started it just because it was something I was passionate about, and turned it into a real business that I exited a couple years later. And that was when Jannae asked me to come and build this idea she had. That was a couple years ago, so I'm proud it's here.
So let's just jump straight into the Cyphr story. I'm going to come back to kind of some of the previous experiences that you've had and how those have impacted what you're doing now. But let's just jump straight into what you're doing with Cyphr. So Foresight, Cyphr, how did it start? Like, is this a lived experience opportunity? Is this saw a problem? I mean, I see entrepreneurs that come at it from various angles. what was the genesis for this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had actually just exited my last tech company, and I got tapped by the SBDC here locally to help. So post-COVID, help small businesses and kind of bridge that gap between lenders, VCs, and then businesses. And I'm a data analyst by trade. That's what I did in the military for about 10 years. I was called an intelligence analyst, which is a fancy way of saying it, data analyst. And I realized very quickly that a lot of the problems and gaps and barriers, especially for people that look like me, it was a data problem, not understanding what we looked like on paper and trying to deploy capital when everything is fragmented, when processes are very legacy and just slow. And a lot of small businesses were missing out. And the government has pushed out this, small businesses are the backbone of the economy, but there's not a lot of things that are set up to actually serve them, especially when it comes to capital. So I actually helped a friend who was going through the lending process, the new PPP loans, the COVID loans, and he went out of business. He became insolvent while waiting for an answer. And the answer was yes, but it took 72 days to get to that yes. Honestly, I got kind of pissed off, sat on some task forces here with the chamber, Mayor Q, KC BizCare, just trying to bring everyone together. And I realized very quickly, I'm an entrepreneur, so let me just solve the problem. It's always on us, man. But yeah, that's the origin story.
And so when you started, so where you started and the problem that you're trying to solve, has the problem morphed and have you shifted targets a little bit? Or has your approach to solving the problem shifted with what you're doing now with Cyphr?
I think the approach has shifted. I think coming into this, so first of all, and I always try to push this to anyone that's trying to start a business. Before we wrote the first line of code, we did like 9 months of customer discovery, talking to everyone and anyone that we could to really identify, when it comes to this data, what was the problem, what could get us there. And I think we had an idea of like who we would be working with, but that shifted a lot. Like now we're working with city governments and MasterCard and PNC, and we really thought we'd be working with on the ground, community, mission-driven customers. And then also what's evolved is we wanted to kind of help them get out of the legacy processes, and it was very much institution-centric. And now we're like, this needs to be borrower-centric. That's where the industry is going to move, especially when you start to incorporate AI. And we're an AI company, we're a data company, and we're trying to be a part of this huge shift and transformation. So it was only right that we started focusing on the people that needed it most and who will be using this type of technology. So that was the major shift for me as the visionary. I'm sure you have some different opinions.
Yeah. A lot of shifts in strategy and everything else. I think the biggest thing is when we started, we thought, why does it take business owners? Why does it take so long to get cash into their hands? This is the real problem that we're solving. Then it shifted as we started to really understand the problem. And I want to double tap really quick on something Jannae said. People think we just came out of the gate and just blew up and like, how have you found all this success? We didn't. We were doing nothing but holding thousands of meetings and listening and making connections and talking to bankers, talking to small business owners, talking to everybody we could to really understand the problem. So I just want to double tap on that a little bit because don't skip it. So we felt we really understood it, but then we came and said, okay, it's not necessarily that the bank is taking 72 days to approve. It's that the business owner doesn't have anything in place that they need to get approved. You've been filing your taxes at a loss for 3 years so that you could not pay taxes. You haven't registered your business correctly. You don't have financial statements, all these things. So it really morphed into how can we support the small business owner so that they have everything they need to make it an easy yes, to get the money that you need. So then we really shifted to like, okay, we know that the institutions are supported. Now what can we do on the consumer side? So that's what we're really focusing on right now is all the tools and resources we can give to them.
So I think of a little bit what you're doing is it's somewhat of a marketplace because you're operating on both sides, right? You're operating with the banks and with the lenders. And so who's your customer at the end of the day? Because you have end users, but then you also have
the institution. I wouldn't say marketplace. as much as I would say we just bridge the gap between the two parties, the two stakeholders. Yeah.
And your customers, those who pay you from a business model perspective, are on the financial side.
They're the capital deployers.
Yep. And then you have end users who use your product on the other side. When you talk about, are they ready and do they have everything there, what's that process look like for them when they come in? Is there a checklist that they need to go through? You know, what are you missing? Like, how's that work for end users when they come in and they're using Cypher?
There's a checklist. The problem is nobody knows what it is. I think that there's been a lot of secrecy even around, here's what's a red flag for us, here's what we're not going to approve, unless you get a really good relationship-based bank that they're going to tell you. You sit down with somebody face-to-face, here are the things you need to work on. So that's what we've really tried to focus on. People don't think about, if you're not set up legally correctly, if you're funneling company money into your personal accounts, if you're doing these things that seem like not a big deal, if you've never looked at any of your cash flow ratios, any of your metrics around your business, you don't know what any of them are, it's going to be really hard for somebody to say yes, because it's not a sound investment. So I think we're trying to make that more visible. So the newest thing that we are building is really trying to give an insight into that, because it helps both sides, right? If someone comes through and they don't need 4 months of underwriting and help and handholding to get approved, that benefits everyone. It stimulates local economies. It gets the money where it needs to be in the hands of small businesses. So yeah, there's a checklist. We try to, once you go through, give you this insight into, here's the areas you can work on. Here's what's going to keep you from getting approved, most likely.
So you consider what you're doing an improvement to the existing system that's in place, using the technology and less disrupting maybe how banks and, you know, how borrowers and lenders operate today?
Yeah. So for the capital deployer, because now we work with more than banks, it's about, you know, being able to deploy that capital without risk. That's the reason why they, you know, hold back and take much longer, because especially for us, who don't look the same on paper, it's figuring out, even getting to that decision is super hard. On the other side, for the small business, who is, you know, a normal consumer like you and me, who has apps like Amazon and Netflix, and they can instantly get what they need, we've created that same experience for the borrower. So a borrower comes through, they only need to answer like 5 questions, connect their bank account. We create everything they need to, or a complete loan packet to get approved. And I think that's been the key, and why a lot of financial institutions work with us.
And the reception on the financial institution side has been very positive. I mean, they're looking for ways to improve this as well, right?
Yeah.
Did you find that they were kind of out of maybe solutions, or weren't innovating in the space enough?
I think thanks to ChatGPT, the adoption in the financial industry, everyone thinks they know what AI is. It feels safer to them. They're using it every day because they understand the benefits of adding it to their workflows and the productivity increase. So for us, that was great as far as timing. Having these conversations is something they always wanted to change, but they didn't have the technology. So right now there is a transformation. The finance industry is undergoing a transformation, shifting to AI, starting to adopt AI, understanding that they need it in order to get rid of the legacy processes. But there hasn't really been anything that has enterprise-grade security that actually solves the problem, really zones in and creates this borrower-centric experience until Cyphr. So it's the adoption and the feedback has been obviously really great. I mean, you know how quickly we've grown.
Yeah, it's like I said to start, it's been impressive to watch how fast you guys have been able to bring this to market and scale and get the attention and get the market attention that you've got. What was that process like? So I want to also go back to the customer validation piece, because I think so many entrepreneurs kind of skip over that step, or maybe don't spend 9 months doing it, or don't spend as much time. Talk to me a little bit about that process. So those were just conversations you were having. Was there any more formal data gathering that you were doing? How did that shape what you ended up building from a platform perspective?
I mostly handled the sales, and my approach was very strategic. I knew we were coming into an industry that made buying decisions based on credibility and the ability to solve problems. So we didn't use like the traditional sales method. A lot of people, or you'll read things. That's you. I feel like it could be me, but I feel like it's you. Yeah, a lot of you'll read books and you'll see LinkedIn posts and thought leaders. And by the way, do you know how you determine that if you're a thought leader? Anybody?
Somebody else has to call you a thought leader.
No, you just
No?
put it in your Instagram bio, and now you're a thought leader, or your LinkedIn.
Or just
All
go
right.
live and say,
Yeah,
hey,
I'm
I'm
a thought
Alaia, I'm a
leader.
thought leader in AI.
Yeah, no, seriously. So as far as sales, like a lot of thought leaders are saying, oh, you need BDRs and account executives, and once you find something that works, then you get 10 of those people and you burn a lot of money and you give them commissions and it becomes this revolving door. We created our own framework around sales just because we knew we had to be strategic. So we actually have we use the rule of 3. I am the head of that, and there's a sales representative and there's a product manager, and we have these sales pods that go out and use our strategic partnerships to bring in the leads, and then we close them. So that's why we move so quickly. That's why we don't take 9 months like traditional fintechs to sell in the enterprise space. It takes us 60 to 90 days. And also, that customer discovery, we knew exactly the problem that we needed to solve. We knew exactly how we needed to approach it, exactly what we needed to say on the call, and it worked.
So what did you learn that you didn't already know in that process? I mean, I know there's a lot, they call it validation, and a lot of times you're validating your assumption sets, the hypothesis that you have about the business. What were some of the surprising things you guys heard, through that customer discovery process?
I was going to jump in really quick and say, I'll let you, because this was almost all her. Oh, thank you. Can you hear me, Jessica Powell? Thank you. Good. Okay. She on top of the customer validation. So as you're answering this, she also did how many meetings when we did with investors in a 3-month span? We did investor swarm.
Oh, yeah. 20 a day.
Oh, wow. All right.
But for
Yeah.
3 months straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when people say, how did you raise? It was so easy for you to raise. It was so easy for you to find, for these banks to adopt and for customers to sign on. No.
No.
She just had thousands of meetings.
Yeah, congratulations for making it look easy, but it's never that easy, right?
But anyways, I just want to jump in case she didn't mention that. It wasn't just the customer. She spent the last 2 years of her life on the phone 24 hours a day. So
Damn, that's a lot.
And so what did you hear that you didn't expect to hear through that process? What was that, didn't think about that, didn't understand that as well,
I think it wasn't more so the product and the problems. I think it was, I didn't expect them to be so aggressively looking for a solution, so bought into helping small businesses. A lot of our customers have the website that says we want to help small businesses and this is our mission, and you think it's for show or performative, but no, they are hiring people that really care about the ecosystem and what's going on and how they impact it and how they contribute. They just had this barrier, so it was extremely hard, and I know you know about that with what you're building. So hearing these things and having these conversations, it wasn't even selling them. It was just exploratory and how can we work together, even if you don't sign up for Cyphr, because that's just my individual mission and value, the person, the legacy that I want to leave is just how can I serve others and how can I leave something that says, yeah, I was here and this was what I did with my life. So finding those type of people and knowing these are really my people, even though I did not expect that, was really refreshing.
It's always, I always tell entrepreneurs that are in the enterprise space, if you can find those large companies that are marketing that they're really trying to do something but they haven't figured it out yet, those are your customers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think banks are probably in that. They want. I mean, this is deal flow for them, right? These become bigger companies. These accounts grow. Like, get them early. But if they can't figure out how to serve them,
Then
they're never going to get them, right? Yeah. So I'm going to go back now and talk a little bit about your history, or a little bit about like what got you here as entrepreneurs. So both of you are serial founders. What would you say you took from those prior experiences that has helped you in this startup, in this company?
I could give at least one thing. When I first said, I had no connection in Kansas City, by the way. I came here after I finished my master's, but I had no one even here. And when I first said I really want to start this business because it's something I'm passionate about, wasn't something I was going to get rich on, I just sat in my house for like 2 years and tried to figure out how to build an online course and like how to write curriculum. And I was like, my major is finance, economics, and derivative theory. So maybe let me go back to school. So I went back to school at Harvard's grad program and got in curriculum design and design thinking, which also took another 1.5 years. I did not need to do any of that. It was great. I was dedicated to it. I needed to reach out to people that knew what they were doing. I needed to get plugged into the community. I needed to come places like this and lean on other people and ask them for help. Like, I didn't need to learn to build a website and do it myself. I didn't need to learn to do all these things. It made it incredibly slow and more expensive than it should have been. And it kind of drained some of the excitement out. So by the time it really picked up steam and I had all these huge partnerships and it was like really becoming this company that was amazing, I was so burnt out. And thank God it just happened really well that I could exit out of that. But that was my biggest thing. And we haven't done that here. I mean, Jannae has built companies as well, so we haven't done that here. But as soon as you have an idea, to really go out and get feedback, to bounce it off to people, not to just even to try to make sales. Like, you can go out with an idea and talk to your ideal customer and try to pre-sell it. And that's your validation. And then okay, let me put some time into building this. And I think that was the biggest thing from my experience that we didn't do here. And that's what made it just work so much better.
Sure. How about you, Jannae?
I think it goes back to, my childhood. School wasn't really a thing for me. My mom is in the audience, so I have to credit her because I think she had the ability to kind of parent me and suggest things. She was able to kind of see my life and purpose with like a magnifying glass, but also a telescope. So like, look down the road and say, why don't you try entrepreneurship? You're smart, but like the school stuff, you're not really conquering that to the best of your ability. And yeah, that was funny. You go ahead and laugh. Yeah, I know. She's the school person. And so being able to start this journey extremely early and kind of understand it, really, I look back on all the businesses and different things that I've tried. It's like teaching me how to, one, let go of ego, because as a teenager, as a early 20s entrepreneur, I burned bridges, thinking I was the smartest person in the room and not being humble when I approached different things that I was doing. Also coming in with just like a fear of how I'd be, if I would be accepted, and just working on myself. And she also has a company about image and stuff. So like, I had some really good experiences and exploration and room to fail, because if you're 15 and you fail, it's just like, oh, that's okay, you're 15. But at my age now, it's a little more high stakes. But being able to go through all those experiences and like have this practice over almost 40 years of life. Of course, this company that I'm doing now, at the later stages, it's just like working, and that is literally because of reps. So I always accredit my experience to that, and I always try to be open about that, because I think people see online and see what we're doing and think, wow, like how did it, like I literally 20 years of failing. Like it's
the iterations,
literally
right?
that. Yeah.
Learning on those pieces. Alaia, you and I talked about this earlier, and I want to ask you now. There is a difference between, I see this a lot for young entrepreneurs. I mean, I think we forget a lot of successful entrepreneurs really start in their 30s and 40s. They're not people right out of college. There's this perception that entrepreneurs are like right out of college and they stepped into, entrepreneurship and built these big companies. What we're seeing is a lot of later in life founders, we'll call them. I've seen that as a benefit because they have the opportunity to probably that earlier experience was probably in a corporate environment or in some more structured environment. So you came out and went into a corporate environment. How has that benefited you, or has it benefited you? Have you had to unlearn things as you step into an entrepreneurial role, into several, startups? How do you think that benefited you? And, the other side of that is, are there things that you had to unlearn?
Yeah. It definitely benefited me. Coming out of school, I was so excited and wanted to just have this amazing career, but I am different. I always wanted it to be in corporate. I wanted to wear the power suits and sit in the boardrooms and do the things. Not as fun as it sounds, but for me, it really benefited me because, one, I learned exactly the way I don't want to run a company. I learned a lot about people that do minimum amount of effort. There's a few people that'll be really, really excited in a corporate environment and love what they're doing and want to work for that, but very, very few. And so the contrast between I have to come to work for this paycheck and I love what I'm building, and this is like I wake up in the morning, I'm so excited to do it. I think that was the first thing that was like such a contrast, but I wouldn't have appreciated that if I hadn't spent so long in corporate. And I did learn a lot about the ways to run a meeting. I don't know. I learned a lot. But
hey, those are important skills. We see that all the time. People struggle with that.
Our meetings go well. It really did. I learned a lot. I learned to stand up for myself, especially in a boardroom where no one looks like me, to find my voice and to stand up for that. I learned a lot of valuable lessons. But had I come right out of college and gone straight into entrepreneurship, I think I would have failed magnificently because I just didn't have, I think people see, like you said, people see the flashiness of like, oh, it sounds so cool to be an entrepreneur. They don't understand that we work 24 hours a day. Like we never turn it off. And we have to be so dedicated, and we have to be willing to do it without pay. We have to be willing to do it when we've failed in a million different ways over the last month. But we've had like this one great win. And so that resilience did come a little bit later in life, one. And I couldn't really appreciate it or really cultivate it until I had been through a corporate environment. So I think coming straight out of college could work well for some people, but there's definitely benefit to being inside of a corporate environment, learning some of the work ethic and hustle, and then just being able to see the difference. Plus, it makes you want to throw everything into your business because working for something that you don't care about is, I mean, it shows you how important it is.
I would say, corporate lit that fire in me to not want to be in corporate.
To not be in corporate ever again.
And you were a sprint. Jesus.
I was,
Oh,
thanks for that harsh. Stick around for the 7 o'clock. We'll talk about my sprint experiences.
Notice how I'm not naming the corporation.
I think a lot of young entrepreneurs, they get this idea in their head of being their own boss, and they think, oh, I don't have to work as many hours. I can like leave when I want. I can do all these things, instead of the mindset that you described, which is, no, it's 24/7. Like, you're being your own boss means you're accountable to
so many people.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're never a boss once you're your own boss, because I feel like I'm always accountable to my team, really, not letting them down. Customers, you got to answer to customers, but my team, and then like my family who has supported me, and people like you who have literally put themselves and their reputation on the line to make sure that we're successful. Like, you guys are really my bosses. And I really, that is like my North Star, in making sure that the decisions I'm making, even if I'm making mistakes, that they're worth it, they're productive, they're growing the company, the vision, because I want to make sure that you guys feel like, okay, the work that I put into this girl, to this company, the things that I've given, like, it made sense, and that was something great, and it turned into something great. So yeah, you're never really your own boss.
Yeah, no, it goes away as an entrepreneur. That feeling of, the benefits of being your own boss oftentimes melts away before you know it. You're talking about support networks and the people who are around there to support you. You were a solopreneur in your previous. You also solopreneur, co-founder?
No,
Do you have a co-founder?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So difference between doing it on your own and doing it with a co-founder.
And doing it with a co-founder you're partnered with.
We'll get to that in a second, but yeah, but just having a co-founder, like I've heard you guys talk about this, and I this is where I was going, was the complementary skills, the complementary approach, the fact that it is a yin yang kind of. I think I've heard you describe this as you're the internal, details. No offense, but you're the sales, no details.
I said I wasn't good at school. I've exposed myself. I know that's not my strength.
So talk to me a little bit about that, the difference between, solo, especially Alaia for you, having done it by yourself, and then now coming into an experience where you have a co-founder and you have just the support of having a partner in the business. What's that meant for you?
Oh my gosh, get a co-founder, y'all. Like, I don't know why I ever thought it was a good idea to launch something without one, but Jannae and I are really lucky because when we started working together, we do really complement each other. The things that I would hate, like the sitting in 8 hours of meetings a day, I would die. And she just really excels in that. She loves to people, and she's really good at getting people on board. She's so likable. She's so passionate about the business, and she can relay the vision so well. Me, on the other hand, even though I'm helping to run the business, been there since the beginning, if you ask me to give you a pitch on the business, I'll just be like, where is Jannae? Please don't ask me. It's not going to sound good. Working on it. And for me, it's if I get to sit early this morning, if I get to sit in Excel for 3.5 hours and build something really cool for the product, I'm in the morning, I'm just look what I did. I'm so excited. And then I'm pushing it, talking to my engineers and talking to my product managers and writing the requirements and then making sure that the cost analysis makes sense. And that stuff is where I excel. That's where my little happy place and that I do really like doing. So while I try to do stuff like this is really her area of genius, really in that CEO role. So we were really lucky that from the beginning, we just found that natural complement to each other's, what we even like to do and we're good at doing. And then it's just navigating the rest. There's going to be stuff that maybe you guys have to figure out. But for us, we've been really lucky. There hasn't been a lot of that. So yeah, I can't imagine trying to do something and build something extraordinary by yourself.
Yeah, I think too many founders try because they still want to have control over it, and they feel like a co-founder, they let control go, but it's a force multiplier. And it's the only way that you have the resilience and the redundancy you need in a business, because you can't do it all. You just can't. So it's amazing to watch the two of you work together, not just because of the way you work together at co-founders, but to your earlier point, because there is more than just co-founders in the relationship. So as partners, as life partners, congratulations, by the way, again, on the engagement. What's that been like to be in business with your partner, the person who you live with and are in love with? What's that experience been like? And I'm sure it's not all, I can't imagine it's been all, flowers and
there's
rainbows.
A learning curve for sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, to piggyback, we have been extremely lucky. So there weren't a lot of learning curves. The first thing is being very self-aware, just of not only what you bring to the table in couplepreneurship, partnership, parenting, but also understanding how you kind of block that, and being able to just reflect on how you're kind of stopping how you move forward and how easy or hard it is. And then again, understanding your strengths. I think we get this question a lot, and how we balance it all. And we don't balance it all. What we do is we focus on blend. A lot of people say, be where your feet are. And we understand that our feet are in 30 places every single day, whether it's at the house, whether it's at work, whether it's blending, and you want that work-life balance. But essentially our work is our life, and then we figure out how to blend everything together. And since we've kind of approached it like that, it's worked very well. Like, we're not afraid to say, okay, we are going to have our laptops out at dinner. Like, and that's okay because it's just today or this week, because we do have to get these things done. And then next week, like these 2 weeks, we know that we're going to spend that with my parents and they're going to drive all the way here. So we're going to kind of clear our schedules, and it's 2 weeks a year. And so that's also okay. So there's the balance, but I like to call it a blend. And I think that's, you know, what Co-Built, which is our couplepreneurship company, is centered around. It's not trying to like go with the status quo and like find this like stupid framework that people have pushed out, but building your own and figuring out how your life works. So it is hard though. When we're stressed about something at work, of course, we're both stressed about it in our individual lives. And when we're stressed about something, it comes into work because we are both working in those different spaces and areas together. So I would say that is the like downside.
Yeah.
One person is not going to be stressed and the other one's like supportive in that moment.
About
We're
your
both
problems.
stressed.
Yeah, there are problems.
Yeah, exactly.
We already know about all of them. We share
You
them
know
all.
what happened today.
So
Yeah, definitely. I could see, you know, I refuse to go with work-life balance anymore because I think there is no balance. I mean, that indicates that there's going to be some equilibrium, and I think now it's work-life integration. Like if you can't figure out a way to integrate the two, that's where the conflict comes into. So, I mean, I appreciate your perspective on that. And it seems like having that opportunity to share your workday with someone has its benefits, but then also that opportunity, they already know. You don't have to, you know, try to explain.
No. I think where we fall short sometimes is we're always talking about work. And so sometimes the connections you'll notice, or will notice, not you, is that our connection is like really starting to form around work instead of like our actual partnership. And we have to okay, we have not like talked to each other in a month because all of these things are going on at work. And so that's what we talk about even when we're off work, when we're sitting at dinner. Did you think about this? And guess what this person said to me today? And it has nothing to do with our individual lives. So we just have to get better with it, honestly.
Are you guys both good at checking that, or is one or the other usually the one that notices and checks that?
I can only speak for myself. No.
yeah, I think I'm a little better. More because I'm the person that'll just be like, what are you thinking about?
Work.
So maybe that's it. Yeah, it's always work. But yeah, it's become an integration, but it helps a lot that both of us have the same type of work ethic too. It wouldn't work for my partner to be happy working like 6 hours a day, just something they didn't really care about. It probably long-term would create a problem because I am passionate about and if there's a deadline, there's something that needs to be done, I'm going to stay up until 3 a.m. and get it done. And then I'm going to get up at 7, like when the kids get up, and do that stuff and then get right back to work. So I may not have time for you. Like I may not have time in this moment or in these few days or even in this week. And your partner has to understand that.
And that's the benefit.
We're working
Yeah,
together
that's the
towards
I
easier
do
goal.
understand.
Yeah, and it's easier to
I look
understand when
over
you're in
and
the
it's
business
3
together.
a.m. and she's like, yep, all right, whatever. I don't care.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that is definitely, you know, one of those benefits for sure. So what's next? What's 2025 look like for Cypher? Ooh, wow!
Good
Started off
question.
with a heavy sigh.
I got excited and did a little
Yeah,
dance. So
wow.
she like,
I'm thinking about the work. We're profitable, which is unheard of. I mean, even unicorns are just burning millions of dollars a month and not profitable. And that was important to us. And if you're in the startup world, obviously as a small business, you want to be profitable. But I think a lot of companies depend on outside and external help, funding. And we wanted to get to a point where we were standing on our own 2 feet. We didn't give away the entire company to do it. So we really focused on customers. So 2025 is just doubling down on that methodology, staying lean and surrounding ourselves with our people, whether that's customers, team members, supporters, allies.
So does that take the pressure off to raise?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
She says I'm good at, I hate it.
yeah, I could see
literally
that.
despise it. I feel like I'm doing a dog and pony show. I don't like it. And I think it takes away from my time actually helping people. And I don't like the bureaucracy of it. I mean, we all know the statistics and it continues to drop. I heard today that like 1 in 1,000 Black women raise. And so when I saw them, like, dang, that was like perspective, because I know how hard I had to work, but like to know that there was 1,000 other women and 500 of them were probably good ideas, but I was the one that was able to get some type of support and capital, was just like mind blowing to me, because I've met so many amazing people and founders and heard about so many ideas, and to just know that is just like crazy.
Yeah, that makes me happy to hear you say that, Jannae, because I think a lot of founders, I've yet to meet a well, I can say I've met maybe 2 founders who enjoy raising money, but I think that's because they're focused on raising money because they want their valuations to be higher versus they're enamored with building their companies and solving the problems. And I would say if that's why you like raising money, don't. You raise money to get to profitability so you can fund your own venture
Actually,
and fund
just
your own
take out
growth.
loans so that our customers have customers to
Be great.
serve, and then we grow.
That'd be great. Yeah.
We all win.
So 2025, tell me, like, what? So are we on rapid customer acquisition? Are we ramping up? Like, what's 2025 look like?
For me, it's strategic partnerships and larger deals. We were really focused on our mission driven, and mission is great, but it doesn't always pay the bills. So I'm just trying to focus on expansion, doing some global deals, and making sure that, our contracts have like 6 or 7 numbers, zeros behind it.
Yeah. For me, 2025, we will be raising again, as she mentioned. To me, that's exciting because right now it's a lot of sweat equity from us. And then our core team, it's just, we require a lot from them, and we have rock stars on our team.
How big is the team now?
Also, I want to say we started this year in January with the 2 of us in a coffee shop, and we have 15 people on our team right now. So
That's amazing.
a lot.
That is amazing.
No, it's been great. We're really proud of that. So for me, on the ops side, is trying to like, okay, we've been running so fast in the right direction. We have these amazing people we built, but now let's get ourselves in order. Like, let's take a step back. Let's relieve some pressure. I hope that we hire a couple people locally. It's we've talked a lot about the hiring in tech in Kansas City can have its own challenges for sure, especially with so many layoffs. So there's people from tech companies all across the country that are willing to work for us remotely for much less than they would in their own market. So that makes it a little tricky, but hoping to hire a couple people locally and then just get everything ready to expand really, really quickly after that.
Now, have you explained to them that their salary goes a lot further here if they were to move here?
Yeah, it's actually.
I've tried to convince 2 people to move. One is in California. Actually, like half of our team is in like Silicon Valley, and they're like,
No.
Kansas,
Why?
like
Why
Wizard
would
of
I move here?
Oz, like no. But
Now you're bringing them out for an all hands though, so they can actually experience it and
actually,
understand
yes,
that
once
it's
a year.
not.
Yeah.
I think
We
that's
did.
what's the saying? It's hard to get people here. But once you get them here, it's hard to get them to leave. Right?
that didn't
Yeah.
Work. Didn't work out.
Res-
All right.
res-
We
resonate
tried.
with them.
All right, fair.
We tried to break out the cool hotels, the team dinners. Took them out to things, but it's hard to convince somebody to move from LA.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair.
It's LA.
You both have referenced ecosystem and support and those types of things, so I want to ask you about that. This is not. I'm not looking for flowers. This is, what is it about, your experience of building by yourself? It sounds like cloister, inside, versus being out and having access to the resources. What are the resources that have been most beneficial? What do you wish we had in the region or from an ecosystem perspective that we don't? Like let's lay it all out there.
I'll have to give a short answer, and then I'll.
I also want to
Pass the
remind
mic
you
to
that
Jannae.
the title of the podcast is The Disruption Lab. So it all goes. Like, let's lay it out there.
Perfect. I'll give my vanilla answer while she collects her thoughts. For me, I think what's most needed is not more programs, more anything else. I think it's just for people to desire to work together and to lift everybody else up. There's not a lot of information sharing. There's not enough collaboration. There are a million entrepreneur support organizations, resources, programs, like certifications. Like, you could go through things for 15 years here and not run out of stuff to do. But they don't necessarily create this ecosystem that just lifts you up in like a straight line. It's just, let's just go. And then now you've been in programs for 4 years. Your business is launched and you don't have any funding. So I think everything is here and it's building, but it's the collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
A simple agreement. That's all I'm going to get, huh? All right.
I just want to start with, I love Kansas City. If you've met me, interacted with me, we've had conversation. I mean, people think that I'm from here, and I'm not. I'm a transplant. But I think the Kansas City focus as a whole, which granted is good focus, is building in other ways. Like, we want to be a tech hub, and I don't want to offend anybody. I think the work that you're doing, very important. There have been a lot of organizations and funding organizations that have been stood up that are just not doing that, right? So they're not executing, and you're one of the few that I see executing. And so that bothers me, because there's this big vision of becoming a tech hub, and then to be the next Silicon Valley, or, the Boston or the Austin. There are certain resources and requirements that you have to be able to meet. And so, you're getting funding to meet those requirements. You have the support externally from other cities and ecosystems, and yet there are tons of startups here who can't grow. We all know it requires capital, and getting to a point of being capital efficient, yet it is so hard in this ecosystem. You will meet 100 people who will introduce you to another 100 people. And that's the ecosystem we have, and that's what I love about it. But I also think there's so many shortcomings when it comes to capital, and I think that these larger organizations like the Metas, setting up a data center here, the sports, and there's so much investment into that. But after the rudimentary programming, like the 101 programming, I don't need to learn about who my customer is and how to find them. Like, I know my business, I know who I'm serving. Where's the next step? And how are you supporting that? So I feel like the Kansas City ecosystem is really focused on like that starter type of business. And there are some brilliant people here who don't need that. What they need is support at a higher level. And in order to become that type of tech hub and ecosystem, there definitely needs to be more resources here. And that's only going to come if you dedicate your time into really helping startups in the way they need to be started. And also the first step is separating a startup from a small business. We are not the same thing. And we require different things. Like, there's grants for small businesses that, if you gave that to a startup, like if you gave me $50K, I'd spend that in a month. If you gave that to a small business, they would grow over the next 2 years. And so it's just like figuring out how to allocate the resources, putting the right people in place, because it's the same people from 10 years ago who are very conservative and haven't grown their mindset, bringing in people from these coastal ecosystems who get it and who have operated in those ecosystems. It's almost like you trying to teach something with someone who has never operated in that space. I would never try to teach a small business how to grow and scale, because I know startups. I know that methodology. And so we have people making decisions behind the scenes that we just need new faces.
Yeah.
I'll say that. And more collaborative mindset.
I think that collaborative mindset piece, one of the things we talk about what density for entrepreneurship means. Like, if you had 100 startups in a neighborhood, startups to your definition, And we always talk about, well, access to capital, access to partnerships, access to talent becomes easier when you can remove the friction you have. For me, I think the most important thing, and I've seen this through other programs like Pipeline, access to fellowship might be the most important thing, because that's where you get this span of entrepreneurs that have some who've done it, who can reach back and say, hey, here are the growth things that you're, finding your customer isn't your issue. It's working on that strategic partnership, or it's making sure that you're prepared for an M&A, you're prepared for these later stage activities. That comes from fellowship, not from programming.
Yeah,
right?
But also being super intentional. It can't be 3 people. Like, it can't be you, Casey SourceLink, and you, MKC. I think one of the things, as far as my contribution as an individual to practice what I preach is, we didn't raise from Kansas City. We went to the coast, and that's why we were able to make history and break all these records. And so I always invite them, come look at Kansas City deals. We're gonna throw this thing, come to it. We'll pay for your flight, because making those connections is super important. The Midwest is so conservative around the way that they think about businesses and the economy. We have to bring that coastal think process and resources and intentionality to the Midwest in order for them to be, for there to be change. So yes, everyone talks about it, and there's a lot of fireside chats and webinars and task forces, but we need more people to just execute. We get it and we know what needs to change. Let's execute on it. It can't be 5 people.
You think there's a hustle problem in Kansas City?
No. A hustle problem?
Mm-hmm.
No.
I feel like there's a lot of 9 to 4 mentality going on.
I don't know. I didn't see that. Maybe I surround myself with the right people.
Yeah, and I think that's it. We do surround ourselves with, and there are people here that are doing amazing things, but they're just off in the cut. They're not just, you're not going to just bump into them accidentally. But to your point on fellowship, the programs, usually the most helpful thing for us has been, maybe not inside of Kansas City, but other large programs, has been, who can we meet that's done this thing? And then even inside of Kansas City, having somebody I can call that's just scaled their business to $1 million a year in ARR, or somebody that just scaled to 10 million, somebody that just sold their business for 100 million, and I can just text them and be like, hey, this is what I'm really struggling with. That is 1,000,000 times more useful than another booklet on how to identify your customer,
right?
Your real customer. They don't need that. They need advice from people that have actually done it also.
Right. Yeah, that helps. So under the Cypher Christmas tree, what's the one thing that you hope you get for Christmas?
$10 million.
$10 million. All right.
$100 million.
$100 million. All right.
I was going to say, this for Christmas, let's make it
a check, a big check of some kind. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, a big check. I'm going to double down on that answer.
That's what you both are. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd love to hire somebody so that we're not working.
We
100 hours a week.
actually met with Jessica Powell before this, and one of the things she mentioned is just when you have team members that wake up every day and want to work for something or value something. We've been really fortunate that our team is like that, and what they value is Cypher and our large mission. So finding more people like that, they're unicorns, and then they're also so good at their job. They are the one when it comes to their perspective or wheelhouses. So finding those type of people is extremely hard, and it so that is also under the Christmas tree, is a couple more unicorns.
A couple, yeah, those are always valuable for sure. I know, you said you love Kansas City. Obviously,
Go Chiefs.
I love Kansas City. Go Chiefs. If we're not having the real honest conversations about what needs to get better, we're going to stay where we're at. And
Absolutely.
my fear is if we stay where we're at, we're going to get we're getting past as it is right now, especially on the economic development side. We get enamored with sports, we get enamored with projects, and we forget who are the big companies that are going to be paying the bills in 10 years for a lot of this type of stuff.
If Kansas City approached startups and small businesses the way they approach sports and growing that industry, we'd be fine, better than fine.
So I appreciate you guys sharing your perspectives so we can get better, not so we can throw shade at Kansas City, just to be clear.
I wasn't throwing shade.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't asking you to throw shade at Kansas City.
We sidestepped the best question, which is there a hustle problem here?
I heard no. I heard very clearly no.
Yeah.
I
really
think
don't
maybe
so.
that you don't think so?
No, I don't think in general there is. I think people may not understand what is going to be expected of them. I think they don't understand maybe this is more startup, that our investors are going to call us and ask what our metrics are. And they want a straight, like they don't want a flowery answer. I want numbers. I want to know exactly what like you've done. And then they're going to call you again in a week and a half. What's shifted? What have you been doing?
Yeah.
What is, it's not like something where it's cute and you have this business. And especially once you have investors, the hustle just gets, it's more and more pressure. People's livelihood, depends on you. Like, they can't put presents under their tree if we don't do our job.
Yeah.
And then your investors, the pressure from them. So I think that is the only thing. I don't know if it's a hustle problem. I think people don't know what they're getting themselves into because there's not enough people out here like saying the good, the bad, and the ugly of building a successful business. It's not panels,
Ouch.
It's not. But you know what I mean? It's not all panels
Dang.
and like trips, first class flight. Like they don't get, the
I don't
sacrifice
fly
you got to
first
make
class.
for
Yeah,
that.
you're actually building something.
Yeah.
You have to be building something. Well, thank you for building it here. Thank you for
Yeah.
staying here.
I love it here.
And thank you guys for what you're doing. Thanks for showing up here tonight and sharing your perspective with us. I always appreciate it. You guys
Thanks for
being
having
here.
us.
So
Thanks for having us.